For anyone actively holding reserve list cards right now and collecting reserve list cards, the alarm bells should be sounding, should be warning players against buying this particular asset class. But if that's the case, then why are so many players seeming unconcerned, and why are they still buying? Interesting times make for interesting decisions. Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here. Thanks again for hanging out with me on my channel today. Before we start today's video, if you enjoyed today's content, don't forget, like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notification bells. I upload content every single day of the week. And of course, every new subscriber is helping us get closer to the 20,000 subscriber mark. We are only 710 subscribers away from reaching that goal, and of course celebrating the 20K party, and I can't wait to share it all with you. It's going to be epic. And right now, if you're watching this video, you know, if you check my main homepage, you'll see that the 20K party video is live. You can see what I'm offering as a way of thanking everyone who's been watching the channel for so long. It's going to be epic, and there might be more stuff added, so just stay tuned. We'll see how everything turns out. So, reserve list. Reserve list, reserve list, reserve list. Everyone should be running for the hills. The way the prices are going, honestly, this should be like some 1920s film with no sound, and everyone's just running from the hills, running away from some horrible thing coming that you don't know what it is, but there's no sound to warn you. There's no scream coming. You're just running. And you can't understand why, because you can't get the right picture, the right view of what's happening to let you know you should be afraid. And it's interesting because as much as that is the tune, I hear certain people saying that's not what's happening in reality. It's not what's happening out there at all. And that's what I find so fascinating, because many people are going to just thumbs down this video. They're going to hate the stuff I'm going to share with you today. But it's not impossible to look at. You can look this information up yourself if you look hard enough. And even if you don't want to look very hard, you can look on things like eBay, TCG Player, just cursory glances that give you kind of a feel of what's happening. There's a lot of sales happening in the backdrop of the reserve list. Ever since, I'd say, I guess the real picture I want to give you is after 30th anniversary. We know the prices started to fall. We know things started to look ugly. People were really upset at Wizards. We had a few massive sell-offs and prices started tanking, and they've been falling ever since. Okay? Then with the overprinting, we saw sealed boxes getting killed. Then with the overprinting again of singles and secret layers, we saw, of course, the singles market taking a beating, but it's holding its own. It's still up. It's still going. MTG Finance is not dead. It's just being ground under slowly. Just the heels being ground in there. But what's happened with all these reserve list sales? Many of the bigger stores are not carrying it. Even here locally, the reserve list selection of cards, like the big bad boys, the Moxes, the Power 9 cards, Power 10, the selection has never been lower, which means those stores are not accepting them. They're not taking them in. They're not buying them. They're not risking the capital. So where are they? Are they on eBay? Are they on TCG Player? They're not there either. But there's a lot of action on those Facebook groups. There is a lot of action behind the scenes, which most players don't get to see that information. They're not privy to it. Smaller LGSs clearing product out are discounting it 20-30% off just to get things out the door for low-end reserve list cards when they want to raise some capital. So isn't it interesting that where everyone shouldn't be buying, the sales are actually growing? They may not be anywhere near close to 2020 sales. Not even close. But an honorable mention for this week on my top 10 video, the reserve list top 10, is Time Vault. Time Vault Unlimited Edition had 22 sales. 22 sales at around $600 to $900, because the sales we're talking about are not near mint. We're not talking BGS and PSA 9s and 10s. We're talking your average playing card. We're talking about a card you can go play vintage Legacy Magic with. That's what we're talking about. Not the near mint, not the collector ones that never seem to move in these types of markets, but the beat up, trashed, destroyed copies that are either moderate, heavily played, or even damaged. But you put a sleeve on them, you can play with them. That's what's selling. That's what's moving on the market. And that's where the sales are being found. In today's video, we have a Power 9 card on the list this week. We have never had a Power 9 card make my list. And it's here. And it just blew my mind. I even warned people on my Discord. I think this is going to happen. Normally, in a healthy market, there is no way a Power 9 card can make it into the top 10. They're just too expensive. But with the falling prices, with the chopping of all these prices, you can find beta heavily played Moxes at my local retailer for like $4,000. If you get their 10% off thing they have for codes and stuff, then you're paying what? $3,600 for a beta heavily played that actually looks pretty nice. It is so interesting to see the market move. And to see everyone saying the reserve list dying, let it die gloriously, let it all catch fire and burn. I understand that sentiment, but that's not what's happening. There's no other way to describe it to you but to tell you that is not happening. Because all those people who could never afford these cards, who said, I'm going to wait till they go cheap enough, well, I guess they're actually buying. I have friends building second play sets of Power 9 because they've gotten so cheap that even when they sold in 2020 and made a killing, they basically buy 2 copies back now. And they don't care that it's dropping. They don't care that it continues to fall. They want to buy it now because they're afraid it might go up again in the future. And then what happens? Because there's only one right and one wrong. There's only one right and one wrong. Either reserve list is going to crash out, burn, disappear, gone. Flatline. Worth nothing. Or the market is going to recover at some point. May take years, but it's going to recover at some point, and those cards are going to be worth so much more than they are right now. Depending on that side of the fence that you're on, you'll make your choice, your decision. Hey, you're just watching a YouTube channel that's purely for entertainment purposes with a guy who like self-promotes saying, I didn't graduate Magic University. You guys can take it as you like it, but the cards are selling. Now we're going to get to the point. We're going to go and take a look at the top 10. The hottest selling reserve list cards this week. And some of these numbers probably won't throw you for a loop, but I bet you there's one card on this list that you're kind of going to be going, huh? That's what I'm talking about. All right, let's get this party started. Let's take that trip down the yellow brick road together, and let's see what's up. The number 10 card this week is Ancestral Recall Unlimited Edition. 24 sales September 30th to October 6th of 2023. The low price is $3,629.49. The average price is $4,619.99, and it's €2,345 to get this card into your house. Here in Canada, it was as cheap as $2,500 Canadian for a heavily played copy, but I've been looking around, and depending on what groups you're playing with and what condition you're after this card, you can find it here in Canada as cheap as around $2,000 for a damaged copy, heavily played for around the $2,600 to $2,900 mark. This card it just lost significant value, but it's not at the point where people don't want the card. This is a Power 9 card. Ancestral Recall says 1 blue, draw 3 cards or force an opponent to draw 3 cards. This thing goes together with everything from Fork to Regrowth, Yawgmoth's Will. This is a game-ending staple card that can jump your game on turn 1. You can end the game on turn 1 with the right combination of cards. This is just amazing that this card actually made it on to my top 10. It is crazy to think how far the price has fallen. Now, if we're taking a look, of course, at the higher end of this spectrum, seeing that $4,619, how many copies do you think are moving at that price? I'll tell you right now, it's 0. When you're looking at the low price, guess how many are moving? It's 0. It's the ones below that. It is the people out there who want to play with this card like we've seen time and time again. You may think nothing's happening, and then you see this and you realize it's just movements behind the curtain where players don't obviously see it, and that's what we're talking about today. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 9 card this week, and it is Demonic Hordes with 33 sales this week. Now, this is a revised edition card. The average price is $6.31 US. The market price is $6.37. Of course, it's €4.03 to get that card into your house, and it's around $7 to $10 here in Canada. But if you were looking for this card on TCG Player, you'd be able to find this card for $1.50. on TCG Player, moderately played. And of course, if you're buying anything on TCG Player, please remember to use my affiliate link. It's found in the description of my videos. You just gotta click the TCG link. It will take you over to TCG Player for your shopping experience. And of course, the channel gets a 3.5% kickback on anything you spend. So thanks again, everyone who spends on TCG Player and uses my link. It helps me get more prizes for the channel. Now, when you look at the hordes here, this thing goes with everything from Dingus Egg to Instill Energy to even newer cards like Clone, Ral Zarek, Teferi who sets the sun, even a Vesuvian Doppelganger. Think about cloning this thing, copying this thing, and blowing up multiple lands in a turn. Yes, you might lose your own land, but if you mix this into a 5-color deck and crazy fun with things like Ren and 6 or Crucible of Worlds, what you can do to players is totally insane. And it's only found in this card because it doesn't say a non-basic land. This thing is just a world-ending demonic machine. Love the card. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 8 card this week. And yes, from Alliances, Soldevi Excavation takes the number 8 position this week with 35 sales. Now, this card has continued to fall in price. Average price is $16.19 for a near mint. You can find the market price at $15.73, €11.26 to get this card into your house. It's around $25 here in Canada for a near mint copy. But when we're looking at this card and how well this thing can be used, you have to understand that this channel has purposely bought this card out numerous times. So we own or control, and I know the whereabouts of around 6,000 copies worldwide. At one point it was 7,000, but the numbers have diminished just because people want to ask them follow-up questions. They don't know. They've gotten rid of them. They've sold them. They're mixed into decks. They're not keeping as accurate a record. So I've lowered my overall perception of how many copies I think I know of. Let's go ahead now. Let's take a look at the number 7 card, and that is the Anvil of Bogarden with 37 sales this week, barely beating out Soldevi Excavations. The average price is $35.97. The market price is $32.31, €19.87 to get this card into your house. And of course, if you are looking for this card on TCG Player, you can find it for moderately played in the $20 to $25 range. Now, when we're taking a look at what this card can do for you, of course, this card costs 2 generic mana. Each player skips his or her discard phase. During each player's draw phase, that player draws an additional card and then chooses and discards a card. Now, I like using this thing with Library of Leng, but you can double the same thing up with Howling Mine, Reliquary Tower, using Underworld Dreams to make your opponents draw a couple of cards and take some massive damage, or even the Uber Mask. Guys, there's lots of options for cards like this. It can be a lot of fun to get that drawing power into your deck to outwit your opponents by knowing what to do with your cards and forcing them to have too many. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the number 6 card this week, and it's Wheel of Fortune with 44 sales this week. The average price, $281.69. The market price is $267.94, €182.09 to get this card into your house. But if you're looking locally, I think you can find it here for around $250 Canadian, heavily played. You can check around some of the local stores. The big stores will carry it. I was taking a cursory glance and saw they had some copies for sale. And of course, Wheel of Fortune works with a lot of cards. Everything from Smothering Tide to Underworld Breach, River Song mixed with things like Soldevi Digger, and not to mention again Underworld Dreams. Finding the right combination and the right build for your deck lends so many possibilities to a card like this having uses that you really shouldn't discount it. Of course, you can use it with cards like Wheel of Misfortune as well to tie things up more. It's a great card. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 5 card. This was a real surprise for me this week as Elvish Farmer from Fallen Empires finds its way onto the list with 48 sales this week. The average price is $4.50. The market price, $4.80. And you got €4.37 to get this card into your house, $5 here in Canada. But can you do anything with this card? It's a low-end reserve list card, so what can we do? Well, this is a 0/2 elf, so it can fit in elf decks if you wanted it to. It's 1 green, 1 generic, and it says during your upkeep, put a spore counter on Elvish Farmer. You can remove 3 spore counters from Elvish Farmer to put a 1/1 Sporling into play, treat it as a 1/1 green creature. You can also sacrifice a Sporling to gain 2 life. This is interesting because this card and the amount of creatures you could generate can work with things like Doubling Season. You can use it with Gaia's Cradle, Namada, the Grove Guardian, maybe even the Sporling Migration, as well as things like the City of Shadows, just sacrificing a Sporling you don't need to get more counters on it, and of course the Sporling Symbiosis. You've got a lot of options available to you for a very limited price, and the unexpected look on an opponent's face when they say, why are you playing with a Fallen Empire card? And this kind of stuff can go down, can be crazy, especially with things like Doubling Season. Love it, guys. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 4 card this week, and that is Copy Artifact with 50 sales this week. Now, it went from number 1 all the way down to number 4, so what is the number 1 card this week will be the question. It has an average price of $43.91. The market price is $43.53, €40.79 to get this card into your house. $50 here in Canada will get you a lightly played copy. Now, again, things like Copy Artifact can work with so many other cards. Things like Mox Opal, because it needs Metalcraft. You can copy it and put another one into play. Sacrificing one, it can be a lot of fun. You can use Copy Enchantment to copy your Copy Artifact. You can also use it to copy things like Time Vault, as well as Isochron Scepter. There's a lot of possibilities, a lot of fun stuff that can happen in combinations with these cards. I love the possibilities of doing these things and finding the right little foothold you need to make it happen. The other thing I've even seen people do is use Copy Artifact to copy Mox Tanlite, which of course will trigger Mox Opal. It's a lot of fun, guys. Crazy stuff. At a very minimal cost, I might add. Now, number 3 this week, another huge surprise to me, and that is Mox Diamond from Stronghold. 52 sales this week, September 30th to October 6th of 2023. Now, the average price is $582.79. The market price is $574.30. €390.74 to get this card into your house. If you're looking for it here in Canada, it can be anywhere from $390 for a heavily played copy all the way up to $700 to $800 for near mint. There's a lot of range of cards and card prices, and most of these sales were on the heavily played side to moderately played side, which means they cost these people Canadian dollars anywhere from around $400 to $450. Kind of crazy to think this many copies sold in a week, but this stuff does happen. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the crazy stuff we can do with this card. Now, Mox Diamond is a 0 casting cost artifact. When it comes into play, you choose and discard a land card, or you sacrifice Mox Diamond. You add 1 color of any mana to your mana pool. Now, this card is not legendary, so it does work with Copy Artifact. It can work with Mox Opal, causing it to trigger off. You've got Wrenn and 6 to bring back the lands you sacrificed, or even Crucible of Worlds to bring those lands back. There's a lot of fun stuff that can happen with cards like this, that it's an understated card to always have around, and when people wonder what they should be doing, there's just so much you can do. I couldn't even list it all. Let's go ahead and take a look at the number 2 card this week, and as a surprise again, we have Fork Revised Edition coming in at number 2. The average price is $38.54. The market price is $37.25, €18.13 to get this card into your house, and it's around $50 here in Canada for a near mint copy. But that is not the copies that are selling. This card, of course, is an interrupt, which basically is an instant nowadays, for those who didn't know. It's a 2 red that can copy instants or sorceries that are cast, and of course it can duplicate them. You treat it as an exact copy, except for it remains red. So when you're looking at Fork, and you realize this card can be found for $20 moderately played, that's what players are going for, that's what players are buying, and it's finding more and more of a home in Commander decks who like a lot of sorceries and instants inside their decks to be used and utilized by copying cards like this over. It's an amazing card. I can't understate this card enough, guys. If you don't own one, you should be picking one up at this price range. It's just too cheap to pass up. Get a heavily played one for $14, $15. Crazy. Now you've waited, and yes, you've guessed it by now. You weren't sure, but now you're right. The number 1 card is Fast Bond. 69 sales this week, September 30th, all the way through to the 6th of October. And we've got all these prices that are going on. You can notice this card has been sold multiple times. A lot of players are buying it. A lot of players are selling it, and the average price has come down a little bit, but overall for the week, it's up in price. So the weekly gain there you'll see is around $3.83. The average price for this card is $27.83. The market price is $22.26, and it's €16.26 to get this card into your house. At this point, I think most people aren't under the illusion that this card is all of a sudden going to be unbanned in Commander. But a lot of players realize that buying this card when it was only like $7, $8 probably made some sense to hold on to a few copies, just like the Moxman does, because you don't know where it's going to go. So you're better to hold on to it because you never know what's going to get unbanned in Commander. And being the most popular format, it doesn't cost a lot to invest in a card like this just to hold on to, just to ride out the storm and see what happens. Now, I want you guys to realize that these are only the cards that made the list this week. Remember Time Vault? That had 22 sales, and that almost made the list. There was dozens and dozens of cards selling between 15 to 20 copies. There are only 572 cards on the reserve list. So for all those players out there who think the reserve list is just burning down to the ground, it's not. It's burning down to the new price, the price that players are willing to pay. It's finding its new bottom, and it's finding it very well. Because although people are not buying sealed boxes, they're not diving into the bundle packs or all these mixed weird type of combination cards that Wizards is giving us. They are buying cards that they feel are cards they've always wanted to own, always wanted to have inside a deck, and are now so affordable, it's too hard for them to ignore. And the prices are still falling. Thanks again, guys, for hanging out with me on the channel. If you're new to the channel and you subscribe today, thanks again for supporting the channel and subscribing and joining in the fun. I'm looking forward to reading everyone's comments today because I'll be honest, Ancestral Recall, it blew my mind. Thanks again for hanging out. Looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Have an awesome day. Reminder, the live stream is not on Sunday. I'll be away to Thanksgiving dinner. It'll be back on Monday and at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Have a great day, everyone. Of course, you guys can see it right now. That's all the amazing Patreon names going by. These are all the people supporting my channel each and every month. So thanks again to all those amazing patrons, my YouTube membership members. You guys, you rock. Welcome back to the Ramble Jamble. You've made it to the end. You got your popcorn ready. You are not going to make a mess wherever you are. You're going to tidy up after yourselves, and you can all grab a seat and chill. Ancestral Recall. It made the list. That's insane. And no, those sales are not coming from TCG Player. You got to look around, guys. You got to find out things. You got to know people. But when you see the transaction screenshots and you're just adding up it all, you go, yep. One person bought 4. 4. Guess how much they spent? Come on, guess. How many? $6,000. 6,000 Canadian, by the way. I guess that's what, like 5,100 US for 4 Ancestral Recalls unlimited. And there was a whole bunch. I'll be honest, I almost wanted to add in Collector Edition, but I didn't because Collector Edition also had quite a few sales. Interesting to see as those cards are falling. They're having a harder sticking point though. So players who are looking at it, I saw some of the screenshot conversation like, you know what, I'm not going to spend 580 on getting the Collector Edition. I can get the real one for like 1,600. Yes, it's like damaged, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They just want to play with it. They want to say it's real. And they can afford that. Insane. Time Walk sold 12 copies. 12 copies. That's huge. I couldn't find any on Black Lotus, by the way. I was hoping. Although I've noticed Collector Edition Black Lotuses, they're totally coming down. Keep an eye if you ever wanted one, just to say you have a Black Lotus, because those things are going for like $3,000 Canadian. They are falling in price. So they eventually will find a new floor, and players will buy that stuff. Keep it in mind, okay? Just insane to see some of the cards we saw on the list. Mox Diamond, Wheel of Fortune. I wonder why they're selling. And if nobody likes the reserve list, who's buying all these cards? Some old person in their 40s who's got too much money? Maybe, but it doesn't matter. They're still selling. Somebody's buying it. Crazy stuff. All right. Thanks a lot for hanging out, guys. Thanks for being here at the end of the video. And as you're watching this, and as I take off this and go get a shower and dressed, I got to go eat turkey. I got to go visit with family. And wish me luck.